Hi everybody, this is Ginger and you're watching Gnostic Psych, the channel where I share with you the arcane and interesting related to psychology. And today I'm going to be talking about brainwashing. But before I get to that topic, please, if you like this video, click the like and subscribe buttons. And if you want to know more about the subject, you can find my references by clicking on the downward arrow. But basically, brainwashing was actually an English language translation of a Chinese expression called cleaning the brain. And it was coined by an American journalist and intelligence agent named Edward Hunter, who was actually stationed in China at the time of the Chinese Revolution of 1949 and during the Korean War. He wrote a book in 1951 that basically talked about the communist methods with taking control of people's minds and making them side with communism. Just as an aside, Hunter himself was a staunch anti-communist, and as a result, he basically had a biased view about communism to where he assigned much more omnipotence and malevolence to the communists than they actually evoked. He kind of made them more of a threat than they actually were. But it still was a concern because American intelligence and military organizations were watching these show trials that were televised of captured American GIs in Korea who were actually confessing to alleged war crimes like biological warfare. And again, I say alleged because they were actually false confessions. And they were beginning to wonder, you know, if the communists did attain some form of mind control, because even some of them actually wanted to defect to North Korea. So they actually enlisted some psychologists and psychiatrists who actually interviewed the servicemen, in particular Air Force pilots who were POWs at one time. And what they found out was, through ruling out hypnosis, drugs, sensory deprivation, they actually found out that sleep deprivation was actually a very effective way to get the confessions. They forced these men to be sleep deprived until they just broke down and wrote down these confessions. And through long-term research, they found out that once the servicemen had returned to American society, they had actually returned back to normal as far as their personal lives, being acclimated to American society and culture. But actually the good takeaway from all this was from one of the psychologists who interviewed the servicemen, and he would later become an expert on cult brainwashing. His name was Robert J. Lifton, and he came up with a concept called totalism, where he basically described it as such. Let me find it here. The movement or organization, when they want to brainwash somebody, what they do is really, either suddenly or gradually, they cut the person off from all connections with the outside world, socially, physically, financially, while they're indoctrinating them. And as a result, the person becomes more vulnerable to mental and physical coercion, and they finally just break down and become a part of this total collective of the cult. It's not unlike, really, the Stockholm Syndrome that people experience, where they're a captive who's with their captor so long and cut off from everybody else to where they actually side with them.